All right, well, welcome back. This is Two Beards in the Bible. I'm John Sueno,
I'm Dave Tenney.
and we're glad you joined in with us. We are somewhere in the depths of John chapter 12.
Yeah, verse 34 is where we stopped at. We didn't mention we're in a new location this episode.
Yeah.
John and I were like to travel in Wilburys. We just
Right.
all over the
Our
place.
children hijacked our studio location this week, but we'll
Yeah.
return.
Yeah, at some point, yes. But this is nicer though.
Yeah, we got a little bit more,
Windows
open
and-
space here. Yeah, the neighbors are probably wondering what is going on over there.
All right, so John chapter 12, verse 34. So last episode we talked about Jesus being lifted up and drawing all peoples to himself. I'm going to read verse 30 just to read.
Okay.
So it says, Jesus answered and said, "This voice did not come because of me." So God had answered from heaven and it thundered. He says, "But for your sake," he says, "now is the judgment of this world. Now the ruler of this world will be cast out." We went over that. That's talking about Satan. "And if I am lifted up from the earth, when he's crucified, I will draw all peoples to myself." The idea that all mankind can be saved through Christ. You don't have to be a Jew or you can be any race. This he said, signifying what death he would die. Then starting anew, he says, the people answered him, "We have heard from the law that the Christ remains forever. How can you say the Son of Man must be lifted up? Who is the Son of Man?" Let's talk about that.
Okay.
So they're like having some contradictory problem here, you know.
Mhm.
So Jesus saying, "Oh, I've got to be killed," and they say, "Oh, well, the scriptures say that Christ remains forever." And I've got a series of scriptures that I looked up
Okay.
that they were probably referring to.
Mm-hmm.
So you look up Psalm 45:6.
Psalm 45, verse 6 says, "Your throne, O God, is forever and ever. A scepter of righteousness is the scepter of your kingdom."
Okay, I'm going to look up Psalm 110, verse 4, I believe. I'm in 108. 110, verse 4. The Lord has sworn and will not relent. You are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek. How about Isaiah 9, 6 through 7? You got that one?
Isaiah 9, 6 through 7.
Yep.
That's on two different pages. 6, now Isaiah 9, 6. "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder, and his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there will be no end, upon the throne of David and over his kingdom, to order it and establish it with judgment and justice from that time forward, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this."
Daniel 7:14. Then to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom that all peoples and all nations and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, in his kingdom the one which shall not be destroyed. So, going back to our scripture in John, so Jesus says he's got to be lifted up, and it says the people answered him and said, "We have heard from the law that the Christ remains forever. How can you say the Son of Man must be lifted up? Who is the Son of Man?"
Yeah, they're thinking again in a tactile way. You know, they're thinking of an earthly kingdom.
Yes. And that is really, I mean, that's the key to the confusion of people in the New Testament. And they just had this idea. It was ingrained in them that it was going to be a physical kingdom on earth.
And Christ all but comes out and says and tells them, my people are not of this world.
Yes.
He comes out and tells them over and over again. pretty straightforward. But again, if those people would have the mind of God because they spent their time in the scriptures and understanding the way that the Lord works, they would perhaps have a better understanding of what kind of kingdom he was speaking of.
Yeah, it's
True for us today too.
absolutely. It's a spiritual kingdom, and it demands a spiritual people.
Yeah.
And that was what they were kind of struggling with, verse 35. You want to read for a little bit?
Sure. Tell me when to stop.
Oh, you stopped one. How about stop at 36?
Oh,
Just read two.
Just a little bit. So verse 35, then Jesus said to them, a little while longer, the light is with you. Walk while you have the light, lest darkness overtake you. He who walks in darkness does not know where he is going. While you have the light, believe in the light, that you may become sons of light. These things Jesus spoke and departed and was hidden from them.
Okay, so what's the light?
Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, again, hard for people, the people at the time to see that. And there's a sense of urgency here. He's trying to give them that sense of urgency that, soak up as much of this as you can while I'm here.
Yeah.
What a wonderful time to be alive.
Yes.
We don't have it too shabby here. In this period of time.
Yeah.
We have, we're under the new law, and we have such an easier time than those people that were alive at that time. But to be able to sit there and speak to Christ and be able to witness his work here on the earth and have that to then spend the rest of your life and lean on that as a strength, would be unimaginable.
Yeah.
Unimaginable.
Yeah. I mean, this is probably on Tuesday of the last week of Jesus' life. He's only going to be around a couple more days.
Right.
And I think that's, there is that sense of urgency here. Verse 37. It says, and although he had done so many signs before them, they did not believe in him, that the word of Isaiah the prophet might be filled, which he spoke. And this is Isaiah 53:1. He says, Lord, who has believed our report, and to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? Therefore, they could not be believed, because Isaiah said again, this is Isaiah 6, 8, 9, and 10, he has blinded their eyes and hardened their hearts, lest they should see with their eyes, lest they should understand with their hearts and turn, so that I should heal them. These things Isaiah said when he saw his glory and spoke of him. So this is just basically directly pointing out prophecies that were fulfilled.
Yeah.
And how many Old Testament prophecies are yet to be unfulfilled? Are there any?
Now?
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
They're done, right?
Right.
There's none left.
Right.
So when
You had
somebody
me thinking that. I'm like, where's he going with that?
yeah, so when somebody comes up to you and they start talking about the end times,
Right.
and they start reading Daniel and the things in the Old Testament, you
Yeah.
say, no, that's all done.
Right.
Stop.
Right. Yeah. I mean that's all done and over with. I mean the Hebrews that kind of spells that out, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Verse 42, John, you want to read to the end of the chapter?
Sure. All right, starting at verse 42. Nevertheless, even among the rulers, many believed in him, but because of the Pharisees, they did not confess him, lest they should be put out of the synagogue. For they loved the praise of men more than the praise of God. Then Jesus cried out and said, He who believes in me believes not in me, but in him who sent me. And he who sees me sees him who sent me. I have come as a light into the world, that whoever believes in me should not abide in darkness. And if anyone hears my words and does not believe, I do not judge him, for I did not come to judge the world, but to save the world. He who rejects me does not receive my words. He who rejects me and does not receive my words has that which judges him. The word that I have spoken will judge him in the last day. For I have not spoken on my own authority, but the Father who sent me gave me a command, what I should say and what I should speak. And I know that his command is everlasting life. Therefore, whatever I speak, just as the Father has told me, so I speak.
Okay, so let's go all the way back to 42.
Mm-hmm.
This I find interesting, and I have a little note here in my Bible pointing to Acts 15:5, but it says, he says, nevertheless, even among the rulers, many believed. And it says, but because of the Pharisees, they did not confess him. But actually, some of the Pharisees believed too.
Mm-hmm.
Because in Acts 15:5, I'll read that. It just says, so this is, there's a conflict over circumcision. It says, but some of the sect of the Pharisees who believed rose up saying it is necessary to circumcise them and to command them to keep the law of Moses. I only point that out to say that, we're a little bit hard on the Pharisees, but some of them did become Christians. You
Right.
know, some of them did believe. So, they weren't all hard-hearted.
Right. And there's that, they've been conditioned in such a way by their lives, and they have this comfort, this structure of what they're used to,
Yeah.
and they just don't want to give that up. And even though, and this is a lesson for us, that even though we might believe, we still have to have that ability, that willingness to step outside of that comfort zone.
Yeah.
And put behind us those things that we trusted in.
Even today, some of us may have come from denominational backgrounds.
Yeah.
And we get caught up in some of these things that are like, I hate to pick on Easter,
Mm-hmm.
but Christians are not commanded to keep the Passover.
Right.
Because that's part of the old law. But man, that's like the biggest church day of the year.
Yeah.
I guess it's the biggest fashion day of the year, right?
Right. Right.
But that's, it's hard to give up some of those things.
Yeah.
What you got there, Johnny?
Oh, I was just looking in Colossians, Colossians 2 at verse 16. Let no one judge you in food or in drink or regarding festival of new moons or Sabbaths, which are a shadow of things to come, but the substance is of Christ. Let no one cheat you of your reward, taking delight in false humility and worship of angels, intruding into those things which he has not seen, vainly puffed up by his fleshly mind. I'm just thinking about that as we're talking about the feasting and so on.
Yeah.
The Passover and everything that people had kept. That's kind of right there. Let no one judge you in food or in drink or regarding festival or new moon or Sabbath.
Yeah.
That kind of covers them all.
Points at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the tough thing with those things. The Passover, Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with you setting aside a day to remember a certain thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is when we start binding it on men, and that's what we've done with these things.
Yeah.
We've turned these things into these official church holidays, and there's no such thing in the Bible.
Yeah, they just don't have anything to do with the church.
Yeah, yeah. You could do them. They don't have anything to do with the church at all.
Yeah, yeah. That's the sticking point.
Yeah,
and that's those are hard words.
Mm-hmm.
I know that people listening to us here, may have trouble with that word, and as you mentioned, growing up in a denomination, that was a pretty big thing.
Yeah,
and especially if you think of especially Catholicism, it's a pretty big deal. I mean, that's where the whole idea of Christmas came from.
Yeah.
It was kind of out of their teachings.
So I mean, we were never told to celebrate the birth of Christ on a certain day.
Yeah.
And we were told to celebrate his death or to remember his death.
Right.
And but we were told specific instructions on how to do that,
Mm-hmm.
and we're supposed to do that every week,
Right.
not once a year.
On the first day of the week.
Yep, on the first day of the disciples met and broke bread, as was their custom. Acts 20, verse 7.
Right.
So, I mean, that's the thing that we're to keep now. And anything else is we're kind of adding to it.
Right.
So, here, a lot of the Pharisees and they believed, but they didn't confess Jesus. They didn't say they believed,
Right.
because they were really afraid of getting thrown out of their social circle,
Yeah. Right.
which happens.
That's a good way to put it.
Yep. It says they love the praise of men more than the praise of God, and that's yeah. So then we got on, and Jesus talks. He cries out. So kind of an urgent thing. He says, "He who believes in me believes not in me, but in him who sent me." And,
Right.
And following there, I think what he's just saying is that his will is aligned with the Father's will.
Yeah. And tangle things up even more, going back to the beginning of John. In the beginning was the Word was God, and the Word was
with God. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Word became flesh. So I mean, this is God.
Yes, Jesus is God.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't forget that.
Kind of hard to make sense of that in your head,
Yes.
but just know that that's the case.
Yeah. He says he came as a light,
Yeah.
and I always like to use this idea that light brought sin out of the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
That light shows us what sin is.
Yeah. 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 If you're in a dark room with a monster as a child,
Yeah.
You can't see the monster until you turn the light on.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. He talks about this idea of hearing and believing, and that's just interwoven in the scriptures.
Yeah.
He says, if anyone hears my words and does not believe, I do not judge him.
Mm-hmm.
For I did not come to judge the world, but to save the world.
Yeah.
Oh, so we can do anything we want, right? Is that what
Right.
that means?
And that's the sticking point, that people take that idea and they try to apply God's will for us gaining His good favor into however they decide they want to do it, and they're just taking God's place, which is
Yes.
not a good place to put yourself.
Yeah. And when he said he doesn't judge the world, he didn't come there to judge them at that time.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to destroy the world. He's not going to judge it.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing: if you think that Jesus didn't come to judge the world, what do you make of the next verse? He says, "He who rejects me and does not receive my words has that which judges him. The word that I have spoken will judge him in the last day."
And I point you right back to John 1. What's the word?
The word was God.
And it is Christ.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So yes, He is going to judge the world.
Yes.
So yeah, like as you're pointing out there, not at this particular time.
Yeah, he didn't come there at that time
Yeah.
to judge them at that time.
You can't take that verse 47, and read the last part of it, for I did not come to judge the world, but to save the world. You can't take that out of context and apply it to today.
No,
And say, well, see, Christ didn't come to judge.
he came to save.
Right.
Yeah,
And
but
if you just stop there,
Yeah.
people have built entire religions out of that.
But when he came to this earth, physically came to this earth, he came to save mankind. He didn't
Right.
come to judge mankind. That's why he was here.
And in effect, deliver that part of him
Yes.
that would judge us.
Yes. Absolutely. So now you know the right understanding of that, right?
Yeah.
He says, I have not spoken on my own authority, but the Father who sent me gave me a command. So it just goes back to that same idea. He's doing his Father's will. He says, and I know that his command is everlasting life. And that's I wish I had this written down, but later on we're going to talk about everlasting punishment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a good contrast. If I've heard preachers make the point that if heaven is real, then hell is real.
Yeah.
You can't have one without the other.
Yeah. And popular culture misuses the term forever. We say, oh, it's going to take forever. It took me forever to get across town.
Yeah.
But this everlasting
is forever.
is everlasting.
Yeah. It is really forever.
And how long is hell going to be around?
Forever.
And
it says it's everlasting.
See, that's another thing that I've heard taught by people before, is that hell's only going to be around for a little while.
Then why is it everlasting punishment?
Right. Exactly. It's just one of those teachings that came out of somebody's mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't remember if it was the Baptist church that was spreading that and talking. This was back in my middle school days, but I remember them saying that, kind of like as a consolation prize, well, if you do end up in hell, it's not going to be forever.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of consolation that is, but if you've heard that, it's not in the Bible.
No. It says everlasting punishment.
Right.
And here it says everlasting life.
Yeah.
And I would say, which one are you going to choose?
Right.
Oh, so let's move on, John. We got about 10 minutes, it looks like. How about Matthew chapter 25?
Matthew 25. One through 46.
Yeah.
All right.
Can you read all of that?
Well, I could. Yeah.
So I believe that's a whole chapter, isn't it?
Got my reading contacts in.
Okay. Yeah, we how about we just read the first 13 verses and see what we can do with that.
Chapter 25, verse 1. Then the kingdom of heaven shall be likened to 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. Now 5 of them were wise and 5 were foolish. Those who were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. But while the bridegroom was delayed, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight a cry was heard, Behold, the bridegroom is coming, go out to meet him. Then all those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said to the wise, Give us some of your oil, for our lamps are going out. But the wise answered, saying, No, lest there should not be enough for us and you. But go rather to those who sell, and buy for yourselves. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the wedding, and the door was shut. Afterward the other virgins came also, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, Assuredly I say to you, I do not know you. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour in which the Son of Man is coming.
Okay, so that just kind of goes right in with what he was talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's talking about this future kingdom, which is going to happen in a couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And the kingdom starts when Jesus is risen from the dead, and that's when the kingdom of Christ started.
Right.
So he talks about this idea of being prepared. I think that's what this parable is about.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the point he's going to get across is there are going to be some that are going to be prepared, and there are going to some who are not going to be prepared.
Right. Yeah, and and that I think of in college we used to have a couple of professors who were a little more strict, and if you were late to class, they shut the door and locked it.
Yeah.
And you could knock on the door, and you could shove your face in the little window and say, "Let me in," and they would just ignore you, like, "Go away, I don't know you." And that was just their hard, fast rule. And you just knew that if you're going to go to class that day, you had to be there before a certain time, or they were locking that door.
I know. I heard that George W. Bush was just like that.
Oh yeah.
I guess like if a meeting started at 5,
Yeah.
They locked the door at 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a story, and I can't remember. I don't remember who was in his administration, but like one of the high up people, either the vice president or whatever, who was Cheney, right?
Uh-huh.
Dick Cheney. One of them was like 2 minutes late, and he wouldn't let him in. And I guess he was really upset about it.
Right.
But,
Yeah. Yeah, that's that's hard to deal with sometimes. I don't know. I'm one of those people that gets all tied up. 30 things happen all at once when I'm trying to leave out the door. It seems, and so I have to really try hard to make sure I'm not late to places.
Yeah.
It's just the way that my brain works.
Yeah.
And so I've run up against that. It's not comfortable, but
yes.
yeah, you can work around it.
You got something you want?
No, go ahead. I was just thinking of when you were talking about the kingdom beginning when Christ died on the cross, and I was thinking that really the kingdom pretty much was established and began on earth in Acts 2.
Yeah,
on the day of
absolutely.
Pentecost.
Absolutely.
Just a clarification there, but
I mean, certainly the first, that was when the first sermon was preached.
right,
That's when it was kind of made known to the world.
right,
So,
the proclaiming of the kingdom.
which was what, about 50 days after
Mm-hmm.
Jesus was crucified.
Right.
So, and the other thing that, I don't know if we've mentioned this before, but there was like a transition period.
Yeah.
And that's why, you see Jerusalem and the temple hanging around for another, 40 years or something after
Right.
Jesus was crucified.
The temple, I mean, it appears to me in Acts 2, if you go into Acts 2, that they in 446, Acts 2:46, so continuing daily with one accord in the temple
Yeah.
and breaking bread from house to house, they ate their food with gladness and simplicity of heart. So that does point to that kind of, not that there was a need for the old law and the things that were
Right.
happening in the temple, but that was the place that you went to learn spiritual things.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that's just by virtue of it being there, I suppose
Yeah.
they used the space.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's, there was this transition period where God kind of let things kind of go
Mm-hmm.
as they were figuring it out. But then once the temple was destroyed, there could be no sacrifices, and all of the things of the old law could not be carried out.
Was that no stone upon another?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Jesus said no stone will be left upon another. And it was utterly destroyed. And even today, the Jewish religion is just a shadow of what it once was, because
Right.
there's no way they can keep all of the old law.
Right.
There's
Yeah, that confuses me. The idea that there are those that still attempt to keep the old law.
I don't understand that.
But it's the same as anything else. When as human beings, we tend to be stubborn, and we just don't want to change.
So you got these 10 virgins. They've got lamps.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of batteries they put in those lamps? Olive oil. I've seen some pictures of some of these ancient lamps, and they almost look like a teapot.
Yeah.
And they had they'd use flax, and they would braid it, and they'd shove it down in the spout, and inside of it would have oil.
Yeah.
And I imagine it probably smoked a lot.
Yeah, probably depending on what oil you use.
We're gonna have to do that this summer
What's
as
that?
an experience to make some oil lamps and see how
There you
they
go.
work.
I think we have an oil lamp in the other
I
room.
meant like one that runs on olive oil, man.
Okay. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, something to do.
I know. I mean, sitting in this room with us, we have a kerosene heater, and it works
Yeah.
on that same principle.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's.
Yeah, but you can't put kerosene on your salad.
Well,
You could, I guess.
yeah. So that's definitely talking about being prepared.
Yeah.
And that's just something that we skim over. We've read this how many times.
Yeah.
But the importance of being prepared and the importance of remembering that there's going to be a time when entrance will be denied.
Yeah, and that's really the whole point of this parable is to prepare while you have time.
Yeah.
And that's in this lifetime.
Yeah.
Because you know when the bridegroom comes, when Jesus comes,
Right.
it's done.
And we know these things. I mean, we prepare for all manner of things. You know,
Yep.
you prepare as best you can with retirement savings, and you
Yep.
prepare to go. I mean, when you go to leave the house, you know, sometimes you prepare the night before. Angela had to take some things to work today, and in preparation, I packed the car full of the stuff yesterday. You know, so you.
Yes.
You make plans for all sorts of things, and you make preparations. We all do it without even thinking about it. But
Yeah.
then, when the scriptures tell us to be prepared spiritually, and sometimes we
Yeah.
say, "Oh, I don't need
Yeah.
that." That's
What's funny is many today who are called wise later on will be called fools.
right.
So
Yes.
remember that. John, I think we better close this one up.
All right.
We're at 31.
Well, thanks for joining in.